Hello, I'm coming in a little early today as I want to make sure that you can see me and that the sound is okay. We'll just give it a few moments. Perfect. Perfect. I can see you on the laptop, so that's good. So I know it takes a while for people to log on, and it does indeed take me a while to be sure that I know what you're seeing. It's lovely to see you all. It's lovely to be back. Just keeping an eye on the time. So I hope you're all staying well. I know it's very cold up in the north of the country. It's actually quite chilly down here in Florida today. We've had very windy, chilly weather, so it's the perfect day to wear my sweater. Oh, I see I'm a bit low here. So I'm just going to adjust this ring a little. That's why we come in early, so we can sort all this out. Because I have a laptop to my left here that sees what you see, albeit 20 seconds or so later. Still a little early, but we'll start in a minute. I know you can see the light ring cast in my glasses. I know that looks a bit weird and I'm sorry about that, but if I take them off I can't really see, so thereby hangs the problem, my dilemma. So what are we now, 6:59, nearly 7. Right, it's 7 o'clock, so I will start. Well, welcome indeed to Knit and Matters, Season 2, Episode 4. Now, whether you're a regular viewer or new to Knit and Matters, whether you're watching me live or the replay later, I'm very grateful for you taking the time to join me. I'm Cheryl. I'm an image consultant. My company is Style Matters International. And throughout my life, I've had two passions, which are sewing and knitting. And knitting in particular is my therapy, it's my relaxation. I love knitting so much. I even used to be the proud owner of a yarn store, a beautiful yarn store in Brighton, England. And one of the great joys of having a yarn store, apart from being surrounded by all that wonderful yarn, is that you get to teach people how to knit. So it's indeed a great pleasure to be doing that all these years later, albeit via a different platform. Now, I wasn't very well last week, so I wasn't able to do Knit and Matters, but I do want to thank you so much for all the kind get well wishes. I appreciated every single one of them. You really are wonderful, you knitters. Thank you so much. I really did appreciate them. Anyway, I'm a lot better today, but we're probably going to be doing a slightly shorter episode than usual, as I wasn't really able to prepare a lot of samples this week. That said, the samples are really the demonstrations that I'm going to be doing, so there'll be lots of information and you won't miss anything for lack of samples. Now, I'm still on my own in terms of operating the camera. So when I move, it takes a few minutes to get it in the right place. So do please bear with me. I will tell you when I'm about to move it. So if it makes you dizzy, you'll have a bit of warning on that. I have a laptop to my left so I can see what you're seeing, but there's about a 20-second delay. So it takes us a few moments before I can see exactly what you see. And I am aware that you need to see my hands. So that's the focus of what I'm going to do when I reposition the iPad camera. I will also try and say hello when your names pop up. Forgive me if I miss you. I can only see a certain amount while I'm doing the live. I do welcome your feedback, and please comment, ask questions. Please do that in the thread below. If I can't get back to you, if I can't answer it while I'm doing the live, I promise to get back to you as soon as possible afterwards. So I just want to know if you can hear me. If you can't, maybe let me know if you can't. That's probably a good thing to suggest. Hopefully you can hear me. Yes, I'm going to keep going until I see somebody say that you can't. But I hope you would have told me before now if you can't. Anyway, I'm going to move things about, so look away now if this sort of thing makes you dizzy. Okay. Place, hopefully in the right place. Anyway, I'll soon find out. Give me a moment while I check what you're seeing. That's my empty chair. There's my chalk cross, which I'm aiming for each time now. Okay, I think we're going to start. Okay, there's several chalked crosses and rubbed out crosses there, but it's very difficult week to week to get exactly the right place each time. Okay, just let me. Sorry. Oh, somebody's Dawn Gravesnare, you're wonderful. You've said hello, so I'm taking that you can hear me. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It's awful to think I might just be talking to myself. Right, now today it's all about cast-on techniques. We've done some of these techniques before in various episodes, but cast-on questions come up quite a lot, and I thought it would be useful to do a few in one episode. And it's easier to find in the replays afterwards if you're searching for cast-ons. So I'm going to do a few for you today, so it should make it easier if you want to think, what did she do for that particular cast-on? Now, if like me, when you started knitting, you probably only learned one or two cast-on methods. And many people work perfectly well with the same ones all the time. But it is worth knowing a few different ones, because they all have their different characteristics and uses. Some are more elastic than others, some give you a tighter, firmer edge. So we're going to start with something called the knit-on cast-on. Now, I must admit, I didn't know that was, for some time, I've been, well, I don't use this one very much, and I'll explain why in a minute. But I didn't know it was called a knit-on cast-on. Knit-on cast-on. Yeah, it's a bit odd, isn't it? But anyway, I just did it. I didn't know what it was called. I just did it. So like all of our cast-ons today, we're going to start with a slip knot. Okay? Easy enough. And this is probably the first one I ever learned as a child. It doesn't give the neatest edge, but it's very simple and it's very easy for beginners. And the one thing I know that newbie knitters want is to get started. And for sure, this one will get you started. So we do the slip knot, then we knit into that stitch, pull that yarn through and onto the needles. Okay. And so on and so on. I'll do a few stitches, then I'll knit a row, because I want you to see what it's like when you do a little bit of knitting on it. So all I'm doing, I mean, it's just a knit stitch and you're just putting it on the needle. Okay, so this is a very basic one. How many stitches have I got there? Let's do 8, 9, 10. Okay, now let me do a row of knitting, because this will actually sort of explain better than I can in words why I'm not particularly keen on this one as a general one. Okay, so I don't like the fact that it leaves quite big loops. Let me purl back and you'll see what I mean. I'm in range. I'm just checking to make sure my hands, you can still see my hands. Because every other method I've tried so far, the famous red draper's tape method, which all came unstuck and then stuck itself to me, as well as everything else. I'm going to just turn that light ring down a bit. I think it's a bit bright. Oh, that might be better. So this is why I'm not mad about this particular cast on. You get these big kind of loops here, which I don't like. Now, if you were using a fuzzy yarn or a thick yarn, it's really not going to matter that much. You're not going to see that. But this is the main reason that I don't use this particular cast on very much. Okay. But it is a good one to get you going as a newbie knitter. Now, a better one, let me take some other needles here, that I think is just as simple is this one. And this is called a cable cast on. Again, we start with a slip knot, Okay. Now you start this one off exactly the same way as you started off the knit-on cast on. You have to, really. So I do my slip knot, and I'm just pulling my loop through and putting that on the needle. Now, then what I do is actually go between the 2 stitches on the left-hand needle for each of my stitches. And just that small change gives you a much better edge. So if you can do this one, even if you're a newbie, I think it's better than the first one. But again, it depends what you're knitting. So, okay, I've done a few stitches there. You get a really nice firm edge, but it's nice and sturdy. It's actually good for ribbed edges. Let me show you. Let's do a line of ribbing. You see, we don't get the same loops that we had on the previous one. And you can do this on pretty much any thickness of yarn. It's a nice edge, it's nice and neat, and you get a bit of elasticity with it as well, you see? There. And you don't get that horrible loopiness. Or I think it's horrible, you may not, and that's fine. But if I compare them, you can see it's a much neater edge. And you get a nice bit of stretch with it too. So it's great for ribbing. Okay, so that's our cable cast on. I do use this one a lot. This is one I use, you know, it's a go-to cast on for me. Okay, let me show you now. I can just take this one off. This one is called a double cast on, and I'm just going to work with 1 needle on this one. So I make my slip knot. I make my slip knot for the right needle. Actually, I'm going to give it a slightly bigger yarn tail on that. My slip knot goes on my right hand needle. Okay. I put the yarn tail round my thumb and the yarn from the ball of wool round my finger. I insert the needle tip upwards through the thumb loop, and then I knit that loop. So the yarn tail is in my thumb, round my thumb, and the yarn from the ball of wool is in my right hand, looped over my finger. So I upwards through that loop on my thumb, and then I knit it. You can get quite a speed up on this one. Again, this is a nice one to use. I've no problems with that particular cast on. Oops. And if you find it easier to cast on with 1 needle, if you find it more sort of intuitive, then this is a really nice one. Now, you do get a very nice edge with that, as you can see. Very nice there. And let's just do a row of knitting so you can see what it looks like when I've done a row, because that's always the true test. It's one thing to cast on, but what does it look like when you actually knit with it? Okay. There you go. So you can see it's actually a very nice edge. It's almost like a sort of plaited edge. Looks great from either side. Useful one. I like it. The one thing you have to remember is that when you cast on, because you're casting on, you're using the yarn tail, you're using that up as you cast on. You need to have enough yarn on that tail for the amount of stitches that you're going to cast on. Now, how do you tell that? Well, there's various ways of telling that. It's not an exact science, but it's useful. So one of the things you can do, especially if you're going to cast on a lot of stitches, there's nothing worse than running out of yarn when you've got to cast on 200 stitches and you get up to 195 and you've played yarn chicken and you've lost. That's very frustrating. One of the things you can do is just literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sort of wind your yarn around your needle. I did 10 there. Then pull it off. Now I know whatever that length is going to give me 10 stitches thereabouts. It's not an exact science, because don't forget you're actually looping the yarn through and you're creating a sort of a knot for the stitches. But at least it's better than just sort of thinking, well, yes, that should be enough. So, you know, if I was going to cast on 200 stitches, I'd multiply that length by 20, and that would give me a decent enough guess for getting that right. So that's one thing you can do. Now, another cast on. Let's have a different colour for a change. Let's have some pink here. Okay, this is another one that is on one needle. This one is called the single or backwards loop cast on. Single or backwards loop cast on. So I am starting with a slip knot. Now this is actually a cast on that I wouldn't use to start a garment, but it's very useful if you need to cast on additional stitches at the end of a row or somewhere in your knitting, or if you're working a stitch like this honeybee stitch. I used this particular cast on to do this part of the stitch, because what you do here is you create forever a wider space by yarn wraps around the needle, and then you drop them, and then on that last row on the way back you cast on the amount of stitches that you've kind of dropped. I know that sounds a bit weird, but this, I use the backward loop cast on here, and it's very nice and neat for this kind of stitch, or if you're doing it somewhere else in your knitting. It's perfect for the honeybee stitch, and in fact the pattern actually does say to use a backward loop cast on. So again, pay attention to what your pattern says about the cast-ons, and certainly for something like this, I have experimented with this stitch and done other cast-ons, and they're nowhere near as neat as this backward loop for this particular honeybee stitch. So let me show you how to do that, and it's super simple. On this one, I've got too much yarn there at the end. I'm going to have a little less so it's not flapping about and in the way. So this is going on my right hand needle. My slip knot goes on my right hand needle, but this time the ball yarn is looped around my thumb. So the yarn from the ball is looped around my thumb. And all I do for this one is insert the needle upwards through the loop and put it on the needle. The reason I don't particularly like this for starting off a garment, I don't think it gives you, you know, the sort of edge you want for a starting off a garment. And what happens is, as you're putting these loops on, it tends to get tighter and tighter on the needle. So when you want to knit back, you sometimes have to kind of wiggle to get your, oh gosh, I'm doing, so see, I made it tight already. So it's actually, it can be, that yarn is splitting. There we go. So it's kind of, yeah, it's not the nicest edge in that sense, but it does work beautifully. Yeah, it's a lot of pulling and poking, and you know, it's just not the sort of edge you want to start a garment on, but it's very nice if you're casting on in the middle of a garment or at the end of a row. You need to create some more stitches, maybe for a facing or something like that, or as you saw with the honeybee stitch. But and again, as you kind of see what I mean about it being tight on the needles. It tends to do that. But it's a useful one to know because you will find it in patterns and they'll ask for that backwards loop. Sorry, I'm losing words today. I do apologise. Okay. Right, finally, the last one that I'm going to show you. Again, it's a single needle cast on. Excuse me while I just take a sip of water. I'm croaking away here. This one is called a double cast on or long tail cast on. I really like this one. There's several methods of long tail cast ons, but this one I think you might like. And again, I have used it before, but it's a really useful one to know. So slip knot on your right needle again. Again, you want your yarn tail around your thumb rib, this one, and the ball yarn around the forefinger, and then you hold both of those with your thumb, so you kind of pull that down. Okay, let me show you again. The yarn tail is around my thumb, the ball the ball yarn from the ball is around my forefinger. It's sort of like a slingshot, and then I'm holding both yarns. Okay, both ends. Then I insert the tip of my needle upwards through the thumb one, and then in the right hand loop. Now, there are some books that suggest that this is a nice one for beginners. I think a beginner might get a bit confused with this, but if you pick things up very quickly, then you probably will be absolutely fine. I do like this very much. Again, you have to make sure you've got the right amount or enough yarn for the stitches that you're casting on. Let me show you what that looks like if I do a row. See, this, and again, this is without getting too much technical detail. This long tail cast on, there are several, but this one, this particular one, you almost look as if you've already done a row of knitting. And sometimes in some patterns, they will tell you to count this as your first row. That's rare that patterns do that, but a long tail cast on is the one that they might tell you to do that. Anyway, let me just knit a row and then you can see what it looks like. But it's a lovely stretchy cast on. You get a nice firm edge, but it's also really got a lot of give in it. I like it a lot, and this is probably my preferred one of them all. And I like it from the wrong side as well. I think it looks really nice. Okay. Now, if you don't remember what they're all called, it doesn't matter as long as you know how to do them, or as long as you give it a practice. You know, sometimes that you'll find them called slightly different things in different books, but I never worry about what they're called as long as I can identify which one I'm doing and what I want to do. So, don't forget, our friends at Mary Maxim are offering a 20% discount off one item. It's the highest priced item in your cart if you use the promo code Cheryl at checkout. You have to use that promo code to get the discount. So don't forget to have a look on their website, and if you choose to buy anything, then put that promo code in and you'll get 20% off your highest priced item. Oh, I've just realised you can't see that so well. Oh, I think you can, yeah. The important thing is to put Cheryl in and then you get your discount. Okay, I'm going to move the camera again, so look away now if that makes you queasy. You see if I can get that all in one go and move back without it being too wobbly. Oh, it does wobble a bit, golly. I will scoot backwards in a minute, so hopefully you'll be able to see me. Right. Well, thank you for watching today. I hope you found that useful. Let me just make sure that you can see me okay. I think so. Oh, no, the top of my head. Again, you might prefer that view. Let's see if I can alter that slightly. This will be rectified one day, but the important thing is that you can see what I'm doing on the table, so you can see my knitting. So as always, this episode and all others are uploaded to our Knit and Matters page. If you want to look at them again, you'll find them all under the section that's called videos, not surprisingly. They're also uploaded to our YouTube channel, Knit and Matters YouTube channel, where you can see them there. And I just want to thank you for watching. Again, thank you for all your goodwill and get well wishes. They were so appreciated by me. Join me next Tuesday, again at 7 p.m. Eastern. Until then, keep safe, keep calm, and keep knitting. Bye for now. I just have to get up and turn off the camera. Bye for now.